Hello, please take a seat and I'll tell you a tale about a war long forgotten or engraved in our hearts. A story about Graf Zeppelin. So, it is well known that Germany did not have a single aircraft carrier during World War II, but could boast of a similar type of ship threatening to carve out Atlantic waters. In the 1930s, both Americans and Japanese realized that if war broke out again, neither side would be able to do without aircraft carriers, so they invested heavily in building this type of ship. Britain, then having the most powerful fleet to defend its vast estates, in turn, also began using these in the plain. Germany lost World War I and lost its colonies, but retained its previous influence on the continent. The country did not see the need for an extremely powerful naval force. In addition, the winning countries issued a number of bans to her, fearing that Germany would regain its strength and pose a threat to world peace again. 1935 The United States, Great Britain and Japan have begun building aircraft carriers with cubes based on the latest technological advances. In July of the same year, Hitler decided to break the bans imposed on his country and ordered the launch of an ambitious project to build a powerful fleet of ships. Although Germany no longer had anything to store overseas, it still decided it needed 4 aircraft carriers. Of course, Hitler was already thinking about expanding the territories of the Third Reich in the future. 1936 On the 28th of December, construction of the first aircraft carrier began at the Kiel shipyard. A year ago, a German commission visited Japan and was interested in the characteristics of the aircraft carrier's Akijai. Of course, the Germans brought back valuable information that could have been used to build the aircraft carrier. It was planned that the majestic aircraft carrier would be able to begin its mission in 1940. 3 years after construction began, the Germans tested the ship. His official name was Flugzeugträger A, but he will later be known as Graf Zeppelin. Although the new vessel was already able to survive, it was not yet ready to be handed over to the Navy. A second aircraft carrier, the Flugzeugträger B, was soon designed. Construction also began in Kiel in 1938. However, when the war broke out, its construction was suspended in 1942. The ship was dismantled. All efforts were concentrated on the construction of Graf Zeppelin, although in the first months of the war the work was rather difficult. Several sections of the ship still needed to be completed, in addition, the most important thing, aeroplanes. That's where the problems started. Count Zeppelin wanted to command the planes with Hermann Göring, the top commander of the Luftwaffe, but the Navy commanders demanded that the planes be handed over to them. Not only has there been much controversy in Germany over who should be responsible for seaplanes, due to the non-division of spheres of influence and the huge costs involved in the final preparation for operation of a ship of this complexity. The funds allocated to the construction of German aircraft carriers are fast following. The final abandonment of the aircraft carrier was decided after the sinking of the British aircraft carrier Courageous as soon as the war began. It has become clear that these majestic ships are very vulnerable. 3 days before the incident, the German submarine U-29 tried to sink another British aircraft carrier, Ark Royal, which had not been able to escape the German torpedoes anyway. On September the 17th, the same U-29 captured Courageous and his entourage in Irish-owned waters. The German submarine launched 2 torpedoes and did not immediately dive into hiding. Both torpedoes hit the aircraft carrier, which, in less than a quarter of an hour, sank to the depths, at the same time taking the lives of 500 crew members. So easily sunk by a British aircraft carrier made Hitler change his mind. Before the outbreak of the war, he was adamant that Germany was in dire need of a fleet of powerful ships capable of converting naval estates from the Royal Navy. and it seemed much more beneficial to Hitler to use the funds allocated to the Navy for the construction of powerful submarines, instead of investing money in an expensive and unreliable aircraft carrier. Other countries also quickly came to the same conclusions. In France, at the time construction of the Clemenceau aircraft carrier was just beginning, the French authorities reacted quickly to the news of the British ship being so easily sunk and decided to suspend construction for fear that the two torpedoes launched by some tiny submarine would also despise the investment in the seabed. 1940 construction of Graf Zeppelin was also halted in April. Cannons that had already been installed on the ship were removed and taken to Norway for use in coastal defense. However, in 1942, the war strategy changed and Hitler decided that the Kriegsmarine forces needed to be reinforced from the air, so Graf Zeppelin's construction was resumed. The ship was scheduled to be completed before 1944. However, there was no success in completing the construction of the aircraft carrier, as if cursed. When more than 80% of the planned construction work had been completed, the Kiel workshop again received an order to suspend the work. The ship's cannons were dismantled again and sent to defensive fortifications off the coast of Norway. 1943 in April, the ship was towed to the port of Stettin, the current Polish city of Szczecin, located at the mouth of the Oder River. 2 years later, in 1945, the aircraft carrier would be drowned in this place by his crew, not wanting the ship to fall into Russian hands. In the last decades of the war, when the Soviets invaded Germany, the fate of the carrier became completely unclear. For decades, everyone believed in the 1947 version. It was carried by the Soviets. Later, the Russians transported their war booty to the then Leningrad by this ship, which all fit in the ship's stores. However, the ship sank without finishing its voyage due to what some sources say was too much cargo, as others say. If Hitler had ordered before the war to concentrate on the construction of submarines instead of stage such large ships as the Bismarck at Tirpitz, Germany would probably have done quite differently during the war. It should be noted that Germany, although it had very few submarines, barely blocked the waterways to Great Britain, which, moreover, was acknowledged by Cherkis himself, who supplied the British with a variety of goods. One can only imagine what would have happened if Kriegsmarine had had more submarines. The fact that, anyway, the ship was unfinished, or, as the third claims, sailed on a mine left after the war. By the way, a few years later I heard rumors that someone had seen the Cold War. At the time, one of the Soviet aircraft carriers had a German structure. It is quite likely that the Russians secretly completed the ship and used it in their navy. However, in 1990, when military archives became more accessible after the collapse of the Soviet Union, the true fate of Graf Zeppelin became clear. According to the documents, in 1947 on the 16th of August, an aircraft carrier under a different name, EA-101 floating base No. 101, was used as a target during Russian military shooting exercises. Graf Zeppelin suffered many humiliations, but when the hour of his death dawned, the ship showed what he could do. It took him as many as 24 bombs to sink. 2-ton and 2 half-ton bombs, 3 250-kilogram bombs, 5 100-kilogram bombs, 4 92-kilogram bombs, and 6 trailing projectiles were launched. However, this whole arsenal was not enough to sink the ship into the depths. Graf Zeppelin was fatally injured by 2 torpedoes. The agony of the shot aircraft carrier lasted for 23 minutes until it was completely swallowed up by the waves of the Baltic Sea, forever becoming a legendary ship. Don't take my words for the truth. Like everyone, I am not perfect. It is best you double-check my ramblings before carrying them around as the truth. Nevertheless, hope you enjoyed it. and I hope to see you again.